Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the TFT Perspective. So, viewers, US elections 2024 are near the conclusion. And right now, according to many analysts, according to many news outlets, Trump has taken its mark after 270 electoral college votes. The swing states, which were very much discussed in previous polls, switching from one way to another, and a lot of liberal news outlets did predict that most probably Kamala Harris is going to hold on to Pennsylvania, on Michigan, as well as in Wisconsin. And right now, what the situation is that Pennsylvania has been called by the New York Times, by CNN, by other media organizations as a Trump win. Georgia is now again back in the Republican basket, and Wisconsin has flipped completely. South Carolina, which the Republicans depended that they might surprise Trump there, but the Republicans have maintained the electoral college vote from there as well as Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan. All these swing states that were being discussed in the polls that they might be the counterbalance at the end of getting close to the 270 mark, but Trump has in fact won a landslide victory. But here is the big tough question: how did the former president, which is facing 34 felonies, and according to many media pundits, that his election campaign even this time was not looking so bright, won such a landslide victory? In fact, a lot of people, especially on liberal media outlets, are calling this as the greatest comeback in political history. In fact, some people are comparing it to Richard Nixon's comeback, but even that was limited when it comes to Trump at the moment. So, here is the interesting fact that around 81 million people voted for Joe Biden as popular vote in 2020 elections. This was a landslide for the Democrats. We all know what happened during that elections. But right now, a sudden shift that around 20 million people didn't even vote for Democrats. And in fact, many analysts are suggesting that in even pro Democratic states, Kamala Harris underperformed Joe Biden. And that's the whole tale right now. In fact, in multifarious counties, in counties that were expected to go Democrat, had shifted. In fact, in Florida, back in 2020, the Miami city district actually went for Joe Biden, but today it is a sudden slip for the Republicans. So, few questions that come to mind. We have with us Mr. Wakar K. Korvi. We're going to discuss this issue at hand. Sir, first, when it comes to right now, the standing is that around 277 projected electoral college votes for Donald Trump and around 230 for Kamala Harris, depending on the results that are coming from Michigan, from Nevada, and Arizona. This might shift to 304 for Donald Trump and the rest for Kamala Harris. Where do you think Democrats went wrong?
I think we did discuss it in the last podcast. The issue was now not just the personality of Kamala Harris versus, let's say, a very old but flamboyant Donald Trump. But issues on hand, I think we highlighted that it was the economy, it was healthcare. Then of course foreign policy was figured out, number four. Then crimes, immigration, abortion, climate change, and including, I think, Supreme Court. Now the Republicans have gained majority. That's another news. I think we'll dissect it of the Senate. So it becomes very, very easy in case Trump now wants to appoint more judges in the Supreme Court circle. So one is, of course, that people were mainly stereotyping, and there was also an element of incumbency. It means that the sitting government of Biden and Kamala Harris couldn't deliver for the American people within continental US as well as abroad. I think the kind of bashing they got since 7th October.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Muslim vote or the Arab vote, and I'm sure you have the data, you can share it, that is also strong. It's very strange because these were the given votes for Democrats.
I
And
mean,
I, and
in
I
Michigan alone, last elections that around 88% of the Muslim county vote, which is close to the capital of Michigan. that went in favor of Joe Biden. Today, Kamala didn't even manage to get 20% of that vote.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, that she has underperformed. Maybe if there's incumbency, actually, you should be very, very careful.
Don't you think that this is underperforming? Like 20 million votes just suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, because there is, I think we mentioned in the last podcast, but there was, basically reject Kamala or some campaign like that. And probably that has also worked. But good thing is that it's not only that Democrats didn't get that vote, but also that I think votes swung towards the Republican. Trump was able to, I think, with his team like Elon Musk, and there are other smart guys that you mentioned in the campaign.
Vice President himself, the
Yeah, JD
nominee vice
Vance.
president. Yeah.
JD Vance, I think, did very well, and they were able to, I think, galvanize the vote. They were able to precisely target, and I think Elon Musk played a major role. And let's give credit to him because he was also worried that in case they
Yeah.
lose, there couldn't be serious consequences. But I think it was a very bold, I would say, bold and audacious move by Trump.
Two assassination attempts at
two,
the same
two
time.
assassination attempts, and he always rebounds. So I think this is a good thing that American people have spoken. Now, for the underperformance, I think one was that they probably took it for granted that in these states, because if you look at the popular vote, even in the blue states, there is some dent that has.
I think they were too focused on swinging states that predominantly go for the Republicans. In fact, they also said that since Texas came very close to the last elections, we might do something there. And Kamala Harris only visited that place for a week, and they thought that that might flip. That sounds like a very bleak strategy. You need a lot of preparation for that.
Of course, I mean you can't do it, in 1 week or one day. The other is, I think, a fact that we normally avoid commenting on Kamala, despite she being from, let's say, a colored community and Indian origin. And there was puja part going on in India, mind you, for Kamala Harris. She was called Kamala Didi, so Indians had a lot of hope. But I think it is her own personality also. Of course, she can do nice talking, but she's considered dumb, by some of the Americans because when you ask, incisive questions, very difficult that she would not actually answer it directly, and she will take you, into a circle. So this was also probably American people are smart. Then I think the old traditional factor that so far Americans have not elected a woman
A
as
woman.
president. So I think that again is a factor that they would like to have a strong president, and especially in these times. So Hillary Clinton was the one who came very close, and I think in terms of popular vote, she had more votes than Trump.
Yeah.
And this time we have seen another woman who was kindly groomed for almost 4 years. But incumbency, the other is underperformance, not taking certain states seriously, and not even, I think, reading the pulse of the people. Like Muslim vote swinging the other side, like the Arab vote.
In, I guess it's either Michigan or Wisconsin. You can confirm that later. One of the Palestinian representatives that are from the American Congress, they won their election without endorsing the Kamala Harris campaign. She was very anti-Kamala during the time of the election campaign. Didn't endorse with what Joe Biden was doing concerning the Gaza situation, and that ended up, how things are flowing in Wisconsin and Michigan right now.
Yeah, I think three Muslim senators congressmen have been elected again. One is, I think, Rashida Tlaib, and maybe
Yeah.
she's from
Yes.
that side. Then we have Ilhan Umar, and I think there is another gentleman, basically African American origin. So they have regained their seat. But there we'll also discuss, I think, what has happened to the Senate and what is happening to the House of Representatives. Good thing is that American president will have the Senate at his back. So in case he wants to bring major changes as per uh, Project 2025 prepared by the Heritage Foundation, and we also need to discuss that they are going to bring radical changes. So I think Senate would back them. So let's see how things figure out. But so far, I think Trump may be crossing 300 mark, and even we were basically looking at the swing states. I think they have accounted for. We were saying that Pennsylvania will be decisive. It has become decisive, at least in propping him up in early, time beyond 270. So it was,
Yeah.
I think, Pennsylvania which finally allowed
Pushed
him to
him,
make the
yeah,
victory
yes.
speech. But I think even our projection of, let's say, Democrats gaining some of the other swing states, have I would say even they have been amended now that even Republican have swept those states as well. Very
Exactly.
interesting.
So I have this figure right now. I'm going to quote it that back in Michigan, there was an 11% deficit for Donald Trump, and now he has a almost 25-point lead in this cycle. And people are generally talking about how the perception was built that people of color, people of different ethnicities, are not going to vote for Donald Trump. But we see this sudden shift of almost 60% increase in votes, especially for Latin speaking communities inside America. Now, there is a big question. A lot of analysts were claiming that uh, since he has a very anti-immigrant, policy, and he's going to deport a lot of illegals from America, uh, if that was as much of a concern for the people of color, don't you think they would have not voted for Donald Trump? What do you think made them go for Donald Trump, especially people from Latin speaking communities?
I think if you look at Latinos, and I think in some of the states they formed 6 to 8% of the vote, which is a big chunk. If you
Yeah.
look at and they normally vote as a community.
Mhm.
And just before you forget, the Amish people also voted for the
Yes.
first time in
Yes.
Pennsylvania. I think more than 100,000. That also, I think, if you look at the lead in Pennsylvania. So these are those areas which were not tapped by either side, and I think this time Republicans were smart. So if you look at Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, these states again have, and some of course it is towards the south and the eastern western seaboard. The Latino vote has also swung in favor of Trump. I think it also reflects the Trump's team, whether it was his vice president, whether it was Elon Musk, or even I think his family. Like this time we didn't see Kushner too much in the limelight, but I'm sure he was doing work in the background. Even Trump's family, extended family, his sons, his wife, and definitely. If you look at this, senators and congressmen in their respective states definitely have played a role. So, all told, I think there was a huge misreading by the Democrats. And I will also add, do you think Biden will be happy?
I might think that his vote might be added into the wrong basket. So,
Yeah, I don't know whom he voted. And I saw some of the
we can
caricatures
talk
that,
about Philadelphia
yeah.
since he usually get the Senate seat from Philadelphia. And
And Biden, some of them put some caricatures that he was dancing in the White House and having a glass of wine. So, because I think he also felt it, because he was put as a candidate. Normally, a sitting American president is allowed. And then in midway, they saw that probably there was serious problem. And the way, in just 1 week before election, he came up with this, you know, comment of garbage.
yes,
And that I think also tilted the vote. So I'm sure there's something to do with Biden also.
Biden knows how to play. Not in favor of the Democrats, though. So, um, when it comes to Trump as an overhaul candidate, we saw the liberal media completely, trying to build up a perception that even this time the colored communities are going to come on top and they are going to vote for the Democrats. Um, don't you think that there was somehow a gap here created by the Democrats themselves, since their entire focus on their campaign was cultural appropriation of the system at hand? And the other things like economics, inflation, the bread and butter of for the Americans was not as much of a concern for the Democrats as it was for the Republicans. We could see that in both of their campaigns at that time. And a lot of mudslinging was being done by the Democrats this time. And that's what the general campaign looked like for Kamala Harris. So, in that area, when you are going to tell the other side that your voters are garbage, and then you're going to portray that since your president, so-called elected, has 34 felonies and he might be, produced in court and given punishment or whatnot. Don't you think this is also going to enrage the other side to who didn't even make up the mind for voting Trump to actually vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think you have a point, because if you look at the campaign, Trump's campaign was very, very positive. He
Mhm.
talked of, and I think even the victory speech did indicate this is going to basically heal America. America is, I think, divided and wounded, and they need a strong, it's basically anti war. So if you
Yes.
look at his bravado or let's say his rhetoric, besides that, if you look at his policies, he has been anti war, and I'm sure we'll discuss foreign policy also that it could have a salutary effect. But inside, I think he was able to connect with the voter, and I think, as you mentioned, that the Democrats or Kamala Harris campaign was more of negative. That in case Trump comes, you know,
Yes,
is
this was one of the pathetic excuses they actually gave, that if you don't vote for us, oh no, Donald Trump is going to come.
come and he's going to do something,
So it was
trust.
more to do with fear mongering rather
Yes,
than
fear mongering.
focusing on the real issues at
Yeah,
hand.
and even if you look at performance in the Senate and Congress, elections taking place simultaneously, I think they are failing in number of places. So it means that overall there was a swing in the mood. If you look at the swing, I think you showed me that map also, that how the vote was swinging all across America. This has been amazing. But good thing is American democracy is very mature. The voter is very smart. Other than those two smart people that you mentioned, Barack Obama with Kamala Harris and Elon Musk with Donald Trump. But American voter has proven that, And then, of course, even if you look at the foreign policy, wars, people
Americans
are
don't
fed up.
like being told what to do.
Yes.
That's the, I would say, primary outcome of this entire election. Whatever the Democrats were focusing on was outrightly saying that since we are the majority, we have majority demographics, we have huge support in different areas. We did defeat you back in 2020, and we flipped a lot of red states at that time as well, like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia. We might end up doing more damage now than the previous elections. They were not focused primarily on their own homeland. That's why they went very defensive just after 3 hours into the, closing in and the election results coming in.
Yeah, and I also point out the Democrat or left media. You showed me that small clip of the tweet. How finally even CNN took 3 hours to finally accede to defeat, and they were now trying from the state going into certain counties and from counties going into localities or the streets, and that was very interesting. I think in case we can show it without impinging on copyrights, that they were now gazing into people's heart that they are.
That is exactly, even there was a counter argument to that. So they mentioned that a lot of city counties preferably go to the Democrats, like even in Florida, in Miami City, even in North Carolina, a lot of city districts do go for the Democrats. And since they always focus in that 80% or 86% of vote has been announced, although Donald Trump is leading with like 300 to 500,000 votes, but there is this specific area in which a lot of votes have not been counted for, like in Atlanta, like in other regions. The only thing they forgot was that Biden actually did outperform, even in from Hillary Clinton perspective, that he outperformed that vote, and Kamala had to win this vote, maintain what Biden did in this region, and actually create further votes than that. So if you are just counting on the same page that votes haven't been announced, the result is still going to be the same.
Yeah, yeah, I think this liberal media also faltered the way they actually develop perception of course, the contest is always
They're also claiming that Trump had 4 years to prepare for this, while Kamala just entered the race 120 days ago.
and what
I mean,
was
she was the vice
yeah, what was she
president.
doing as the vice president? She had more exposure internally and externally.
Like, she was endorsing the entire
Yeah,
Biden
yeah,
campaign, as well as Biden policies that end up hurting the Democrats the most. So let's go to the next question. He gets, he is now the president elect. Probably going to hear it from the next time on January 5th,
January
2025.
20th.
January
But
20th.
I'm sure he's going to keep appearing on
Yes,
media. But formally, it will be 20th January that
20th
he's
January
inaugurated.
inaugurated. So, right now, what we have witnessed during his campaign, Trump does have a very anti-war policy. He has a very pro-Israel policy, I would say. He's been endorsing the Zionist lobby, I would say, a lot. And other than that, he says that things are looking for bleak for the American economy when it comes to outsourcing wars in the region, like in Ukraine, like in even in Middle East. He's trying to focus primarily on manufacturing, building up economy inside America from top to bottom. Even during the last time, we have recently witnessed how Americans are throwing their weapon manufacturing capabilities against the Russians by just giving away stuff to the Ukrainians, to the Israeli government, free of cost. While on the other hand, Trump did, make certain deals with the Saudis, with the UAE government, and they purchased a lot of weapons from them, but at the cost of actually giving Americans some money. So that's the whole agenda. He's a businessman. He thinks like that. So in that domain, do you think we will see the continuation of that state, or since a lot of things are very difficult for the Americans right now, his primary concern would be to at least reduce the inflation, manage the system at hand, and then later on go with his aggressive mode of that deportation policy, anti-immigrant slogans, and that whole aspect of things.
Yeah, I think since it's a very loaded question, so I'll just try to break it down. First, I think just recall of the issues. So if there were 10 issues in the elections, I think we mentioned it last time, uh, foreign policy was one of the issues. It
Yes.
means that in terms of domestic versus foreign, the issues is 9 is to 1. So it means the entire focus, even for I think Democrats, they had to. So you had economy at the top, healthcare, Supreme Court nominations, foreign policy, violent crime, immigration, gun policy, abortion, racial and ethnic inequality, and climate change. Of course, both parties had different view, but these were the issues. So it means that mostly, even I think Kamala Harris, if she had won, probably they had to focus domestically. And this is also a corollary of what happened in the foreign policy. All the flops or bad decisions. Now we come to the, let's say, foreign policy. That what are the issues confronting Donald Trump's? And then I also remind me that I'll just go through the process. What is going to happen between, let's say, 6th November and 20th of January 2025, because then it leads us to how decision making is going to take place. It's a transition period. So in foreign policy, you have Israel-Palestine war. Despite that, Trump has a definite, let's say, bend towards the Zionists. But the war is now also reaching, I would say, a culmination stage.
Yeah.
The world is tired of it. You've seen genocide taking place.
I mean, things are looking bleak for Israel as well. They're changing their cabinet, reshuffling it.
Reshuffling.
The defense
Today,
minister has been
yesterday,
sacked.
yes, yeah.
There are talks of removing the chief as well.
Yeah,
There
so
are
it
talks
means
of
that Netanyahu is now trying to maybe trying to fish in troubled waters, because he sacked his and I think Yoav Gallant, whatever, but he was leading from the front. The defense minister was sacked yesterday. So it means there is something cooking up, and you may find something happening in Israel. So people are fed up with the war and the atrocities, and they would like to. So it means that Trump has a window of opportunity. Maybe he can't implement Abraham Accord as such, but he can definitely go for peace. But he has to wait till 20th of January. So it means that these 3 months or less than 3 months period is still there. With the Biden administration, which is actually
we don't know
paralyzed.
what Biden is going to do now.
Yeah. Then we have Russia-Ukraine war. And before I go to that, if you look at Project 2025, Iran and China, they are going to be squeezed as per them. And that has been the policy. So how Trump is going to handle Middle East and then contain Iran. Russia-Ukraine war, it's a very clear stance. He has said that had Trump been there, there would have been no war. He has very good chemistry with Putin, let's be very frank. And actually, last time when General Flynn, his national security advisor, was sacked within a week by CIA, or let's say CIA was instrumental in getting him sacked, the reason was that he had certain Russian connections. But now Europe is fed up with Russia-Ukraine war. Already the, let's say, German economy has gone down, and then the effect is coming on North America also. We have seen massive migration of Ukrainians, almost 10 million people, and a major chunk has also landed up in North America. So it means that they would like to stabilize. Then comes the relation with the EU. How he, like NATO, you remember last time he said you disband NATO because since basically he has a transactional relationship with the countries and groups or organizations. He says you pay your thing. Let's say it's 2 to 3% of GDP on, let's say, strengthening NATO or weapons to do it. Then comes the Indo-Pacific will become interesting. But again, there is another situation which has been created. Then let's say when Trump came up in 2016, now it's a very different situation after almost 10 years.
Yes.
Or 8 years, sorry. So in Indo-Pacific, he would like to squeeze China, and he would like to prop up India again as a counterbalance, and maybe some of the Indians were commenting. But India has now gone one step ahead in BRICS,
Yes.
which I think directly would impact US dollar, US economy, and outsourcing or bringing the jobs back home. So it means there will be a balancing act required by India, which is very, very difficult. The way I think Modi had approached with President Xi, and Russian influence is growing in the BRICS, and there's talk of de-dollarization. So, and then if you add to Russia, Ukraine, it's a very, very complicated situation. It's not going to be easy sailing for Trump in Indo-Pacific or for India also, because I'm sure Trump is going to ask for certain concessions. Then we come to the jobs, which is affected by foreign policy. How much jobs can be outsourced, and manufacturing coming back, fracking and shale gas. So these are the issues. That's why when people discuss in Pakistan that maybe he will have a change in policy, these first of all he has to deal with these issues, and then maybe Pakistan can figure out somewhere. Now we come to the process. Okay, now we come to the process, which is again very important, because there were commentators, in India and Pakistan especially, because we normally stereotype that okay, from 7th November onward, something is going to change. No, it's not going to change. Formation of government in US itself is a huge process, but I'm sure the Republican team or the Heritage Foundation or Trump's team have already, I think, have a list of people who are going to be appointed. Like who's going to be NSA, who's going to be the Foreign Secretary, who's going to be the Secretary of State, and all that. They have a huge agenda of reforming Department of Justice, FBI,
And governance. In fact, Elon Musk has
Elon
been tasked
Musk.
for that.
Yeah, he could be czar of governance change or improved governance. So this is very interesting, because last time he had a czar of I think he was chief strategist also. One of his and then he was sacked. This was a new appointment. And so it means that probably Elon Musk also finds an important position in the administration. It's going to be very. And then if you look at Project 2025 by Heritage Foundation, they are very radical changes they want. They actually talk. The starts with that we are going to dismantle the establishment. So let's see how far they can go. So it means there's going to be a clash. Now even in nominations, you will find establishment trying to create hurdles again. Let's say if they want to bring radical, people in the White House and administration. So it means there's a process which starts from today, and then world is not going to sleep, because in these 3 months there will be major changes in Eastern Europe. There could be major changes in Israel-Palestine war, or maybe China, does something. So what do you do with that? So this is I think a transition period is very, very dangerous for US, because the old administration is demoralized. They would not like to appear on the media, and new administration is busy in formation of government. So, and some of the I think secretaries, or the like President of the US creates 3,000 direct jobs when he
Yes.
comes, and then there are 30,000 jobs created by their subordinate. Like you have Secretary of State, then Assistant Secretary of State, and then they have a team, mostly based on existing bureaucracy. But here, Project 2025 says that we are not going to have all the bureaucracy, because they will. You remember last time, a lot of leaks by bureaucrats
Bureaucrats, yes.
of bedroom talks and all that, or pillow talk. So they are talking of basically bringing alternative, which I don't know how the constitution would allow. And then of course there's a process of verification or hearings, confirmation by the Senate. There is an advantage that now Senate they have majority. So all told, 20th January he is inaugurated. Then he starts receiving people, meeting. There could be like somebody was saying, there is a Quad conference going on in June, and Trump will be there in India. So India will trying to project. He is not even taken oath. They will decide it after 20th that in case India is I would say paper tiger in Quad, why Trump would travel to, maybe there was certain international commitment. So I would say that till June 2025 is going to be, I would say, a transition period, and he will have his feet on ground by that time, and then you start feeling, let's say, the impact of his policies or change in policy, domestic and foreign. So this is the kind of, I think, thing we should know, and people can do their own research and find out how the American system works.
Yeah, you mentioned that back in 2016, Trump has had a very different policy when it came to handling China, India, and the rest of the world, especially NATO. Right now, what his Vice President-elect is suggesting, even during the campaign, that what the Chinese have been doing is complete opposite of what the Americans have been doing. That's not hammer in the nail of every single country and pushing them to do what exactly the United States wants to do in cooperation of the national interest of the United States. But at the end of the day, he also mentions mutual benefit as well as mutual respect for one another when it comes to foreign policy. This is very much close to what the Russian foreign policy is exactly, according to the fourth political theory of Alexander Dugin as well. So, in that area, uh, when it comes to how things have unfolding, you did mention that India is getting closer and closer into BRICS, and anti-dollar movement has been initiated. So, would his previous foreign policy change with this respective time? Can America actually work together with China in actually making the world a better place, or we're going to see the same, bipolar world of two superpowers fighting against each other for dominance?
I think you mentioned J.D. Vance. That is very important, and precisely, it appears that he took a page from Alexander
Yes.
Dugin's fourth political theory, and very good that you pointed it out, where he says, and I think we've written it also published, I think 3 4 years back. What is the fourth political theory? It basically recognizes the honor and respect of other nations, irrespective. He says even if it is Sri Lanka or Madagascar or Pakistan or let's say China, Russia should be dealing, as friends, as equals, and we should not be telling other nation what to do. In case you can find,
A common ground.
a common ground, you work together. And I remember the one of the Greek, let's say politicians, Yanni Varoufakis, who was again very critical. He actually mentioned this is the difference between what US has been doing and what the Chinese are doing. So if they are picking up like that, and the vice president is thinking like that, so I think this is critical. That is, and maybe if you look at the cost US has paid in last, let's say, 2 decades. We count Iraq war, it is, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but $1.5 trillion.
Afghan
Afghan war
war.
was $1 trillion. Now the Russia-Ukraine war, it is said it is closer to maybe $600 billion, and indirect, losses to what happened to the West and US.
Campaign
Maybe,
against ISIS, then what
yeah,
happened in Syria,
they left,
Libya, and other
yeah.
regions.
And I was also looking at one of the interviews by Trump. On one of the podcasts, he mentioned that in case he was there to implement Afghan exit, he would have made sure even a goggle was not given to Taliban. So it means that Taliban should also be very cautious that maybe he start demanding that return the arsenal, because that is the American arsenal. And those $87 million coming every week was sent by Biden to destabilize the region. Maybe Trump would not like it, and that's where I think Pakistan also gets some space. On Iran, what's going to be the stance? So all told, if you look at the cost of the war, suppose, let's say, instead of becoming a hyperpower and bulldozing everybody, had US applied brakes and gone into a benign mode, I think they could have led the world for next 5 decades.
Yeah.
I'm very sure. Saved, at least $3 to $5 trillion and created goodwill. Now we find, in Africa, they're trying to, even you find in Pakistan, good thing that US ambassador and consul general are moving around and trying to help, because this is how you basically do give and take. So I think this is again very important. If a vice president is saying that, it means there is a thought. And then of course, but I think within that they have picked up two to
Because this
three.
is going to be a very thin line between what the American establishment thinks, how the things should work for the world, and how the current new regime of the American polity is going to think how things are going to work.
Yeah, because the biggest challenge would be the U.S. establishment, and also I think Trump has some areas where he would be going hawkish, like China. It is mentioned again in Project 2025 that we are going to squeeze China and maybe strengthen Indo-Pacific. So maybe in Asia they would like, but as you mentioned, things have gone ahead after that.
Yeah.
After
20,
2020
yeah. Things
or
have moved
2016,
way
things have
forward.
moved ahead. And I always say that world will not go to sleep if US starts, let's say doing something and waits that probably they can't restart. So they have to adjust. Maybe they have to pull back from whatever is happening. It will take a while. He has to convince his military establishment, the intelligence, because he'll get. I remember last time when he came in 2016. Before that, in November, December, there were briefings by CIA. At time, he would say that I don't need any briefing, but maybe this time he will have to get those briefings, make up his mind. So it's, I think, very interesting time, very challenging time for US. He's talked of healing the United States, so it will take a while. But let's see. if something good can come out of this election,
Yeah,
why
other
not?
than that, last question: how would things unfold for South Asia in general? Um, there was a funny clip on Twitter in which apparently Mr. Moody from an alternate universe congratulated Donald Trump for his victory in this landslide victory in the U.S. elections, and very puffed up his chest and said that we are going to discuss the issues of Bangladeshi Hindus and Hindu phobia and all these things, and anti-China rhetoric as well. And this was reported very highly by Times of India
Is
inside
it?
India. Yeah, they forgot to check that that account was a parody account.
It was a parody account. So just imagine, there they should actually, one, they should have done the fact check. The other is they must know that it's going to be 20th January onward.
Yeah.
That maybe Mr. Moody can put a word with him. So far, you've seen congratulatory messages are coming up, salutations and felicitations, and I think everybody would do it. Even I think Pakistan has done it, Mr. Moody has done it, and then you'll find from
Bilawal
different.
Bhutto has done it.
Yeah.
I mentioned that.
So that is
And Mr. Shehbaz
that's
Sharif.
the. But now there is a transition. Still, I think till 20th January, Joe Biden is very much the president of the United States, and so far that's a policy which will continue. But I think India should be very careful on how they are going to balance it out. So if they are trying to, let's say,
They
build
were
up.
mentioning Kamala Didi every single time. Her father was also coming on there as posted by. So they were very much prepared that if Kamala comes in, we have this aspect, and if
Yeah.
Trump comes in, we
Yeah.
have this to
Yeah, they
serve
try to
them
be
on a
very
platter.
smart, but I think India was also discussed negatively during this campaign. We mentioned it. It's because of what they have done to American and Canadian citizens by sending death squad. I'm sure Trump is going to come very hard,
Yeah.
irrespective of my friend, Moody, and he also said the Moody is a killer. He said, I don't know, in a lighter tone, but in case India wants to draw certain concessions, they have to then have a look at the BRICS policy of de-dollarization and all that. Because I'm sure Trump's going to be very hard. And I think he did mention that in case there is a threat to dollar, so US can declare a war against that state.
Very interesting. So that's it for today, folks. Please do leave a like and subscribe our channel. Hope so things end up well for the US as well as for the rest of the world. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching us. Bye bye.